Hello everyone, a warm welcome to our investors and prospects. As you know, there was a big news in the market for Golden Visa, and this was a change in the nationality law. And we are receiving a lot of questions, especially from our existing investors and applicants. In that sense, we wanted to inform you, as always, at Optilon Crea, with our valued partners, legal experts, mainly from Legal Square and Edge international lawyers, and have their perspective according to their wide experience. So, Anarita, Manuel, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
So, Anarita, what is the proposed law change for the nationality law, and who is it targeting?
So first of all, it's important to say that this is all very recent. It just came out as a public announcement of the government, in general terms, saying what they are preparing to propose as a change to the nationality law, which will obviously affect everyone. So everyone who wishes to apply for the future for the passport would be affected by the proposed changes, whatever they come to be. In general terms, so this is not aimed specifically at any type of nationality or any type of application for nationality. It would affect everyone that wants to apply for a passport under the Portuguese law. In general terms, what the government proposed was to increase the time for application for passport from 5 years, which is the current, to 10 years. Also, the time for counting this period, going back to being counted from the first date of issue of the first residency card, opposite to the date of the submission of the application, of the request for application, which is what currently stands. And there's also a small introduction on top of the language requirement, which still exists, speaking Portuguese at A2 level. They also want to include some knowledge of historical and cultural aspects of the Portuguese culture. In general terms, to the extent that can affect our clients and the existing investors, this is mainly the proposed changes.
And can you also give some information about what is the representation of Golden Visa investors waiting for residency or in this program compared to the general residency applications?
Of course, it's difficult because there's a lot of pending applications, and therefore the results or the information that comes out is not always very, very accurate. But of course, following this recent news in the program of the government to increase this, a lot of other news came out. And so the numbers that they have published was that show us what we know from the start, which is the number of requests for passport arising from Golden Visa applicants under Article 6, which is the naturalization, so by residency, is very, very limited. It's not even on the charts. So the majority of them now pending are mainly Sephardic Jews route, for example, is one of the most pending, and some other options through marriage or through kinships of family relations. So the number of applications is not very significant.
Okay, so Manuel, what is the legislative process of this law change? Where do we stand now, and what we are expecting in the future?
Well, where we stand now is basically at the very beginning. Right? This specific process started with a proposition from the government. It could start with at the parliament level or from the government, but it is a law that can only be amended by the parliament. So the government alone cannot change this law. So they had to propose to the parliament, so the parliament analyzes and comes up with a final decision on it. That said, we are at the very, very beginning. We actually went one step back. The government approved within the government a proposal, submitted to the parliament. The parliament accepted and started to discuss it at the first level, and then I'll explain how many levels are, but at the very first level. And at that discussion, actually, the government asked to withdraw it, so to not get a vote, and bring it to a specialized commission for constitutional rights to have it discussed first at the constitutional level. So this means that we are not even at the first step of the parliament discussion. It went back one step, which is already signaling something, right, in terms that the government withdraw that discussion. That said, there are several steps still to be taken. It's very hard to describe you a streamlined process because at each step there are alternative routes
Yes.
that could open, right? So that workflow is not a linear one. But that said, what's expected now is that in September, because the Parliament is closing for vacation, in September that Commission will come up with a decision, with an approach to that law, which could be completely unconstitutional. We cannot save it at all.
Okay.
No problems. Please discuss and approve if you want, or anything in between. Right? It's not perfect, but we also feel that there may be some constitutional problems here, so we recommend some amendments. If any of these two, meaning if no problems or if amendments, it will go up to Parliament again for then to complete this initial discussion on general terms, we say. After that, it will go to discussion of each of the articles, which can again be going down to a specialized commission to analyze each of the articles.
It can potentially take longer than...
It can potentially take longer. So if you want to summarize, because we don't have much time here, and I believe that everybody will be bored with the legalities, I would say that we are looking at no less than end of September, beginning of October to finalize it, if everything goes fast, and no idea when it can end. It's open.
And it would probably vary from the original proposal, as we have seen in previous years.
That I would say, well, always at this stage, speculation.
Yes.
Only lawyers' opinion. We can't say more than that. But it's speculation from people like Ana-Rita and myself that have been present in this segment for many years.
Yes.
So my expectation here is that the original version will not come back. It will be something different. There are some constitutional issues that I think they are obvious, and those I believe they will be addressed.
The main question about the retroactivity. So I will be asking both of you, but I would ask Ana-Rita to start. Like, how would it affect the passport applicants, and how would it affect the ones in the residency process at the moment, which is including mainly our golden visa investors?
Okay, so it's a difficult question. I know maybe the answer is not going to be the ones that you would expect to hear. And as Manuel said, a lot can still change. We're at the very preliminary stage. The government, the government does not hold the majority in Parliament, so they will necessarily have to count on other parties' votes to pass on this law. Well, obviously, some commitments and some negotiations will have to be made, because obviously all different parties have voiced already their opposition to this law as it is. So a lot can still happen. But one thing is for sure, the Golden Visa is a residency program by investment. Okay, so it's residency. It's not passport. This is not a citizenship by investment program. That's the reason why it still exists. If it was a CBI program, a citizenship by investment program, probably it would end up like the Malta one or all the other ones in Europe that have been asked to shut down. So this is not a passport, it's a residency application. So there's two sides to it, and I agree with Manuel. I would be very, very surprised if this law would be retroactive to, I believe June 19th was the date that they were intended to retroact it to. It would not be possible. So anyone who has already submitted their passport application would be grandfathered, and I believe that whatever changes will happen will change for the future, like they always did. And we had this discussion. If you've been an investor, I think we've done webinars on this when they were changing the golden visa law and etc. So it changes for the future. And if you remember, at that time there was also the intention to retroact to avoid the rush. It's always the same principle, but it changes for the future. So one thing is, whoever submitted their passport application already would, I assume, be grandfathered by the existing regulations. Different thing is whoever is still in the residency program, so it's not yet in a position to apply for the passport. And so in that case, if the law changes or when the law changes, the changes will affect, obviously, whoever hasn't yet applied for passport.
Okay. Now, your thoughts, Manuel, on this?
Well, I would say that I would subscribe everything that Ana-Rita said until the very end.
Okay.
At the end, I would say that we are not completely aligned, although I subscribe everything she said until then, for one simple reason. And I do understand it's not as immediately understood as you could imagine, or at least it doesn't extract it immediately from the law that we still have today that protects retroactivity. For me, it's more we need to navigate into or deep dive into the principles, right? There are reasons for us to have rules like non-retroactivity, right? It's not just a rule that we made up. It's not a kid's game. It's a consequence from or a conclusion from a principle, and that principle is our laws should not apply retroactively because we should protect a value, and that value is legit expectation. So anyone in the country, foreigners or locals or Portuguese that are subjects of a law should be granted the assurance, the security on the Portuguese legal system, in a sense that if a law is there, applies to you today, anything that happens to that law in the future, it will not impact on you. So protecting your legit expectation. And that said, and here is where we see things slightly different. On my concept of things, golden visas or residents, not just golden visas, residents are already somehow covered by legit expectations to secure a passport. They are in that process. It's not a ordinary law, right? It's not an everyday law. It's not a simple law. It's a very relevant law. And probably even more than golden visa, the normal residents. People change completely their life. They decide to move from their home country, sometimes separating from their families, coming to Portugal, staying here, complying with the law, looking for some sort of permanent status in Portugal. And that permanent status, only citizenship can give it to you. The residency, even the permanent residency, although legally speaking, we talk about permanent, it's not permanent. It always depends on keep complying with requirements. Only the citizenship is a given fact, a given right that cannot be taken. If we say people today that if you move to the country or if you invest, if you're a golden visa investor, after 5 years complying with the requirements, you will be entitled for a passport, that legit expectation should be protected.
This is your perspective.
This is my view, obviously.
I totally understand.
And it's not on formality of things, right? On formality of things is if this new law only applies to new citizenship applications submitted after the day the law becomes enacted. On formality, it's constitutional. I'm the one that is thinking that we should look more not just that, and we should go also into principles of law and see why we have these rules and cover this.
The reality is, on my side, because I've been, what I see from the investor's perspective, of course, their main trigger is to apply for the passport, compared to Greece and everything. That is the main reason of choosing Portugal other than other residency programs. So they are, of course, and especially with the kids, with family reunification, that would be the challenging part for the investors, frankly speaking. But we will see, and thank you for this. What are the possible best and worst case scenarios for golden visa investors?
The worst case scenario is obviously that that the exact proposal of the government is passed on as a law. So obviously it increases substantially to 10 years.
Yes.
And it counts from the date of issue of the first card, which is another unfair situation, because we all know the situation with IMA and
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. Sometimes clients waiting for more than 3 years for their first residency card. So this would be the worst case scenario. Would be starting from date of issue and then 10 years of residency and more tests and more requirements. Obviously, this is the best case, the worst case scenario. The best case scenario would be that nothing changes, but because that's not possible, somewhere in the middle, something more reasonable, I think, increase 1 or 2 years would not be as bad. And especially, I think the date of counting of the beginning would be very crucial if they can, because I believe it's the new government not knowing exactly what the situation inside IMA is. And we have heard that they're not familiar with the technicality and the small details of the golden visa. So maybe they don't know that there are applicants waiting for almost 4 years for their initial cards after having submitted at least 2 or 3 sets of documents throughout the entire process.
And making significant investment.
And so I believe that in the discussion, someone will bring this up and say, but it doesn't make sense because they have complied, they have given you 3-4 sets of
They
documents.
have completed what they need to do.
And so it's
actually
not their fault that they don't have the first card issued. So the best case scenario here would be for them to honor the date of application, provided obviously that they have submitted all the necessary documentations. And this is where we can make a difference between different types of residency. Okay, so we know that for the golden visa, to even start the application, they need the full sets of documents and requirements. So it's other types of residencies is not exactly like this. So this is where we can make a small difference. For the golden visa applicants, we know that they have their requirements and their documents from day zero. So it's not fair. One of the best solutions possible is for them to understand while in the discussions that this is not the applicant's fault. It's inefficiencies of IMA for, different situations through COVID and restructuring from CEF to IMA, all of that. And this would be keeping the date of submission as the trigger date for this would be a good scenario.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we are very aligned. I think that we will have a new law. I think it will pass. I think we are not answering here any problem that we have in the country, rather than politics. Without going into that, because I do believe that at the end of the day, this is just resulting from the new composition of the parliament and the new forces coming into play and the new balances. So, and I think that will be understanding those new balances will give us the answer to how the new law will look like. But that said, there are limits in countries like Portugal, where rule of law it's real. It doesn't look. I know it doesn't look, because every now and then we have.
They are changing a lot, frankly speaking.
At the end, if you remove all the noise created by the news, and I'm not telling the newspaper or the news people or the journalists, I'm saying actually the political players. If we remove all the noise, at the end of the day, what we have is balanced laws. If you take the last time that we changed the golden visa, you may like it or not. And, that's another thing, but from a legal stand, the law is balanced, ended up being fair in that sense. There's a political view, there's a decision that the country take to reduce the golden visa, but did not affect anyone that was already involved.
Yes,
or
it
applying,
was not.
right?
But
it didn't look like.
I can make comment, because we have also made some webinars, I think, together as well, the counting of the application. We also communicated that it is from the application date, so it will be really unjustful, I would say, to start counting from
that would be would be one of the parts of the law that would make me very surprised if it stays there. I would be very surprised. There are international commitments that Portugal subscribe into at the EU level, actually, where that rule is written and we absorb that rule. And strange enough, without anyone getting an approved citizenship yet based on that rule, after the law changed, we removed it. That would be very, very strange for me. That's one of the parts I was mentioning, the political game. Right? I think this law entered prepared to be amended from the government side as well. Okay. So even the government didn't want to approve it as it was submitted.
I understand. So another question for both of you. If we assume that it will be extended from 5 years up to 10, we don't know where it will end. How should investors react? Is golden visa itself is changing? Would you like to start?
Sure. Well, I think you heard me already a few times saying, don't freak out. Don't freak out, at least just yet. But in any case, I'm not obviously a supporter of this change, but even if this change comes to reality in his worst design, that will mean that current golden visa investors will have to wait longer. Maybe a little bit more, maybe the double to 10 years, but that's it, right? The golden visa program is not being changed at all. So I'm not even mentioning, it's not changing, period, right? And at the end of your 5 years golden visa, you still have the possibility to go to your investment PR, investment permanent residency. So at the end of the day, what you're talking about in the worst case scenario is you will have to wait longer, a bit longer, much longer, for your passport. But the passport option is
still there,
is remaining there, regardless of what kind of change we'll have at the end.
To the citizenship law.
Exactly. You'll still have the right to apply for a passport. So my approach to that today specifically is do not freak out. Do not freak out. There's obviously awareness among the government and the strongest opposition parties of the constitutional problems that this proposal is raising. So, and this is actually being very vocal this time. Right? Not just lawyers, judges, law professors, everybody is signaling already to the public that it has constitutional problems. So let's wait for the next development.
Any additions to what Manuel says?
No, it's basically this. So the golden visa hasn't changed, and also the law gives us opportunity to anyone that has been a legal resident for 5 years to apply for permanent residency. So this is not changing.
Residency, they don't need to keep their
There's no
right?
time requirements for the investment PR. They do not need to keep their investment. So there's multiple choices depending on each investor's family structure and objectives, and even on the investment side, if they're in a fund, if it's a closed-end fund, if it's, what do we do? There's always alternatives, even if they have to wait longer. So it's very difficult position, the one that we're in today, discussing not knowing how the timings will be measured, how long it will have to wait. I'm sure that, both of our firms and all the other firms will need to wait until, what really changes, and then trigger this and attack this case by case to each client, saying how this affects you in particular. But this has been in the law, so the ability to apply for a passport after being a legal residency has always been in the nationality law, and this is not changing.
Okay.
What's at stake here is obviously timing, which we understand, frustrates and worries a lot of our investors, but it's not the ability to apply for a passport that's at stake here. It's how long it will take us to get there.
I will just rephrase in the sense that that it is extended from 5 years for our existing, probably common clients as well. Either you can apply for a permanent residency after having the 5 years without the need of keeping your investment, or as long as you keep your investment, you can renew the golden visa by the same rules to fulfill the time. In the sense that having a property, of course, keeping the investment is a very personal decision. But in the fund, some of the funds that we are advising has a closed end, so finalizing before their timeline. But we will adjust the timings according to the needs of the investors, since these funds are mostly and actually whole for golden visa investors. So this is kind of a reassurance for our fund investors too. Then I will pass to the last question. So if the golden visa existing investors impacted negatively from this, extending from 5 years, so if the law changes from what is existing today for them, is there a legal course possibility? What is your personal opinion on that according to your experience?
It depends. I know it's
typical lawyer.
It's very lawyery. I know. I hate to be the one to say this, but it really depends. It depends on what comes out as the law. It depends on the personal circumstances. And although we do not exactly see eye to eye here, the reality is, in my view, when the nationality law changes, it will change. We don't know how good or how bad it will be for our current, but it will change. When it changes, it applies for everyone who has not yet applied for the passport. Now, whether or not their acquired rights or expectations can be used to file a court claim against, it will depend. And this is where I believe that it may be cases where it is legally attainable that they invested and that they applied for residency with the view of, but it will not be automatic. They will be affected by this, and they would have to take legal action and resort to the courts to try to prove that they wouldn't have invested, or they had the legal expectation to receive their passport in X amount of time, and now the rules changed. But at some cases it might be difficult. Whether or not this will be, in practical terms, it depends on how long this law extends. Because if it extends by 1 or 2 years,
they were already waiting for that.
The time that it will take them to go through courts and to discuss this might not even, be a solution. So it really depends. Obviously, it's a difficult position to be in without knowing how the law will change.
What do you think?
Well, I would say more or less the same thing with the remark that we do not see eye to eye, as Anrita said, in what would be the impact at constitutional level of this present proposal becoming law. That said, assuming that, and this would be very strange on my view, that none of the safekeepers of the Constitution that are implemented along the process to change a law, if none of them kind of signaling the unconstitutionality of this law, so Parliament level, at various levels, nobody raises that issue. If it passes through the President's eyes and he closes and say, I don't see any unconstitutional problems here, if all of that happens, you still have the possibility to, when this law applies to your specific case, to challenge it at the court of law. It's a harder one because you're fighting 1-to-1. You're fighting not the law itself, but the application of this law to your specific case. So if you win, it does not become a rule to everybody else. So it of course creates a precedent, but we do not have this rule of precedent in Portugal. So even if your neighbor won,
you have to open another case and see
at
for
least,
yourself.
well, it's very hard to simplify in 2 minutes, right? Okay. But yes, it's sometimes it's like that, or most of the time that's the standard rule. Of course, then after a couple of cases with the same rule, you can kind of bring it to the Constitutional Court again and kind of make it more general declaration of unconstitutional applicable to all cases. But to standardize things, if this law becomes effective and affects you, and on my view, as we discussed before, you have been damaging your legal expectations, which is unconstitutional in my view, you can fight it at courts of law, at European level, Portuguese level at start, European level at the end, but to your specific case. So it will not make a precedent to everybody else. So it will be a one by one.
Okay. So out of these questions, I will take bets now, because we will meet again probably in October to see our later stage. But personally, how do you think it will end up for Golden Visa investors?
I think it will end up being less dramatic than what everyone is anticipating and then proposed. I think it was clearly overreaching to give some room for negotiation.
I think you
like
both
when you
agree
negotiate the price, you know how it works.
Exactly, I know. Commercial
commercial, more or less like that. I would be not happy, but least worried if it goes to 6 or 7 years. And my main concern here is I would really like someone to address to the government and to the parliament that the waiting period is not caused, at least on the Golden Visa side, is not caused by the applicants, and so at least this time, this waiting period should be honored if obviously they have provided all of their documents and all the requirements are met. I would be very happy to see that that the time counts from the date of the submission, the proper submission of the application. So yes, I think that would be a good
7 years.
6, 7 years.
Okay. Better, worse?
Depends. Depends.
I love it. I love to speak to you.
Well, what do I think? I think this is more a political move than anything else, right? I think we're not solving any real problem in the country. I think it's a test of the waters for the government, and it depends who ends up being the partner, the government's partner. I mean, the government alone cannot change the law. He has to partner up with one of two parties, which are extremely different from each other.
Different from each other,
completely
right?
different.
Right to left.
Exactly right to left. Right. One is the former government, which is the one that changed the nationality law to the version that we have today.
From 6 to 5, am I right?
From 6 to 5, from the date to start counting your residency and all that. Right. So the ones that made it easier to obtain a Portuguese citizenship, and the last version of it has less than 2 years, and it's actually enacted. Technically speaking, it's not even enacted. There's one part that is still missing, but the law itself, the citizenship law, is enacted for 1 year, basically. So the government is asking, so the new government is asking to the guys that just amended the law 1 year ago to completely forget it. Hard to ask. On the other side, is asking to a far extreme right party, the new kid in the block, that wants to, make a statement. And these guys want more changes than what the government is actually requesting. And
dangerous.
well, I would say at the lack of bad expression, they are the Trumps of Portugal.
Okay.
Right? So it's a party that is hard to negotiate with. You never know where they stand. Right? And even on this specific law, they already have 4 opinions issued to the public. Right? So in a month, they have 4 different opinions. So I would say it's hard to say. It's a poker game, definitely. It's a poker game. Nobody's telling. Nobody's giving away their game.
What's your feeling? What's your gut feeling it will end up?
My gut feeling, one of two, depending on which party ends up with the government. Of course, I have my preference, and of course, I'm biased to that preference. I would say that at the end, we have no change at all, which is it's still a possibility. Really nice. It's still a possibility, but it's getting narrower every day. It's not just wishful thinking. It's not just wishful thinking. It is possible. It is possible. Or a more compromised solution, if the government ends up doing the right thing and going to people that are more reliable in terms of political standing, and end up with one. We'll not have 7 to 10 years. We'll not have 2 deadlines, or I think we'll end up with 1. That was already tested in previous times, and we ended up with just 1. I don't think it will be 10. I think it will be less than that. If we go that, right? So if we end up having a change to the law, or we don't have, or we have something different from what's being proposed, a more reasonable approach. And here I'm very close to Ana Rita. So changing, not changing the time, the date to start, so the kickstart of your residency time, and reducing from your residency period from 10 to something more reasonable. 6 to 7 would be my bet.
Okay, I understand. And
what about your bet?
My bet, well, when you say 6 to 7, that you agree, I should go around that, I guess. But I don't believe it will be 10, neither, frankly speaking.
We never had 10 historically.
Yes.
Yes.
We had 6 for many years. We never had 10. I think it's something, we've always been a country of immigrants.
We still are.
We still are. We're receiving a lot of immigrants now as well. This is part of the culture, part of who we are. The law was never 10 years for naturalization, to apply for passport through residency. And I think it would be very drastic. Even if we one day get there, I think we have to go baby steps. And this will be, I would be very surprised if it was that drastic.
One more bonus question, this one.
Surprise.
Bonus for who?
What would be your recommendation, or even today when you are speaking the new prospects who are considering golden visa, what should they think and what they should do at this moment of time?
This is a very personal question. So obviously you have to think about the reasons why you're doing the golden visa in the first place. And I believe those haven't changed, unfortunately, because sometimes they're related to political instability or to insecurity or any other scenarios which unfortunately are still there, and so they're the reasons why applicants are still considering the golden visa. You have to think, why are you considering this? And then it's nearly the only country in Europe that offers a golden visa program that, although very bumpy in the road, still works at the end. And when our clients get to the end and hold their passports or hold their permanent residency, they forget about all of these inefficiencies and delays and where's my card, where's my biometrics. So it's a program that works, and the law still allows residents in Portugal to apply for a passport. So you have to consider the reasons for your family, even if it increases a little bit, as we explained hopefully very clearly today. The law offers you solutions and alternatives, like extending the golden visa a couple more years or applying for permanent residency if we get to. So there will always be a path, maybe a little bit longer, if that's enough to keep you away or to demotivate you from doing your investment. So maybe it's not, maybe the reasons.
Then wait and see.
Then wait to see. It will not be forever, it will be a few more months. There's no particular rush. As we said, the golden visa is not going anywhere. We'll still be here end of September, end of October, end of November. So if you're with doubts, just wait a little bit longer.
Okay.
Well, I would summarize by asking, what's a deal breaker for you? Right. Let's discuss your deal breaker. And assuming that the golden visa remains the same, the worst case scenario will be more time for you to apply for the citizenship. What's your deal breaker? And if you don't reach your deal breaker, I still recommend go ahead. You may end up not even changing the law.
Okay. Yes, you
sorry.
wanted to say something.
No, sorry. Yes, I wanted to say something because I think that obviously we are lawyers and so we do not, but also from an investment perspective, and you're the one to tell this, the majority of our clients have never been, they've been successful in their investments when it was property, when it's investment funds. So even from an investment perspective, it was not a situation where the investment was bad or it was terrible to maintain it for a few more years or for a couple more. So also on top of that, the reasons behind, look at the investment itself and see whether or not it may make sense.
Frankly speaking, on the investment side of the business, we always mention that it's a diversification of investment of the family wealth. So in today's world, it is really important to take into consideration. It's not a donation or anything. Basically, it's a form of investment. So we encourage, if the investment seems accurate and good for them, to take this step. Considering the situation, I think it is still good to start as soon as possible. If they are okay to see that it can be extended, best case scenario, they will be protected before the law change. This is a best case scenario, but in the worst case, it can go up to 6, 7, 8, 10 years. But if they are okay with that, it is also good to take a step forward in that sense, in my opinion. So thank you so much for joining me with your busy schedules on a short notice. Hopefully in September or October, I will be hosting both of you again. And thank you so much for listening us.